Hello. Today we're going to be running through chapters 2 and 5 of dissertations and thesis from start to finish. I know this is the wrong edition, but I did the notes on the right edition, so it's fine. So, chapter 2, assessing your preparation. Now, before you guys start this, it's going to be really helpful if you go ahead and take your research readiness checklist or just do that. It's a quick little questionnaire, just yes or no questions. It's in chapter 2. That's what all of this is about, so it's kind of pointless if you don't do that. All right, so let's get into it. So, interpretation. Items 1 through 4 are going to be all about your writing skills. Now, these, along with your methodology skills, are going to end up being the most important. Okay, so you want to be able to assess how well do you think, how well can you translate your thoughts into typing, writing, and how strong is your grammar, how strong is your language, all these different things. You want to start to kind of assess those before beginning any kind of a thesis, dissertation, anything like that. Then we're going to go ahead to methodology skills. Now, this is really important. Have you taken research classes before? Have you taken statistics? Do you know what any of these things are? Do you have a good understanding of them? If you haven't, it might be time to pump the brakes a little bit, go backwards if you need to, or get tutoring. Or another valuable resource is go on YouTube, and there's tons of tutorials on all of this stuff. And so that's a kind of simple way of doing it. But brush up on all these skills because a thesis, a dissertation is not easy, and there's lots of research involved. So if you're not familiar with it, it's going to be really difficult for you. Moving forward, environmental and social skills. These are items 16 through 18, right? Social support, not social skills. This is very important as well. You want to consider, now, you want to really consider your environment. Okay, so actually, it's interesting. If you stick to one or some specific environments during a specific time of the day, your brain will narrow its focus, and even the distractions in those environments, your brain will get used to. So they will no longer have that distracting effect. So this can be really helpful. So really consider this as you're in this stage of preparation. You're going to be spending a lot of time on this research. So you want to make sure that you're not just kind of doing it wherever. And additionally, social support, right? Don't forget about your loved ones. Don't forget about the people that care about you. And so it's really important to talk with them, have clear communication of expectations. Hey, I might be off on my own for a couple of hours because I got to work on this research, but then also make sure you're scheduling time for them because that's going to help a lot. For one, as far as interruptions, but also just to show them that you still are loving them, you still care about them, that they're still a priority. Then we're going to go ahead and move down to computer access and skills, and this relates to the library as well. Items 19 through 21. So this is important. I mean, all your research, you've got to know how to access databases. You've got to know how to use a computer. You've got to have access to a computer, have access to databases. So that's something important to consider. It's going to be really difficult to do this research if you don't have access to a computer, if you don't know how to use a computer, if you don't have access to library resources like databases. Time management skills, there's only one item on this, item 22. There's a whole chapter on this. I'm not going to get too much into this. Just make sure that if you need to work on these skills, you're starting to work on them now. Interpersonal skills, items 23 through 25. Right, so this is important. Whoever you're working with, especially for this one, if you're working with a group, right? Your research chair, faculty, right? Your interpersonal skills are really important. There's going to be times where they're going to tell you, hey, you need to go back and work on this. And it might feel offending. You've put a lot of work into that. How well are you able to manage that? This is kind of what you need to consider. And if you have struggles in this area, it's also time to start considering kind of working on those skills. Formal and informal rules. So your formal rules are going to be just about anything you can find in your handbook, on the website. These are the official rules when it comes to the research you're doing, when it comes to who you're working with, deadlines, things like that. They're all written out in paper. Informal rules, these are ones that are unspoken. So it's important to talk to people who've been there, talk to faculty or other grad students who've been there, and try and hear from them. What are some important things to consider? Cost and resources, items 26 and 27. It's not cheap to do research. Make sure that you're accounting for this as you're going into this research project, because it's going to take a lot of time and it's not cheap. So make sure you account for that. All right. Over here we have cognitive ecology. So first of all, the rule of threes. Now this is the idea that anything that you're estimating as far as time, as far as difficulty, as far as the resources you'll need, times it by 3. I know that's a scary thought, but times it by 3 because that is much closer to the actual or to the reality of what this research is going to require of you. Then it's important to realize, hey, knowledge is incremental, right? You're probably not going to be putting out a study that is groundbreaking, and that's okay. Knowledge is incremental. Most studies are not groundbreaking, but they still move the whole field forward. So it's important to remember that. Finally, you want to balance your high standards with realism and pragmatism, right? It's good to have high standards, but don't become too obsessed with having high standards that you totally forget, or that you just lose track of what's really important. Now we're moving over to chapter 5. Let's see if I can get this all in frame. That's pretty good. All right. Thesis, dissertation, proposal. All right, so it's important to remember this is going to be your first significant piece of writing, right? So you're going to figure out a lot of things, and it's going to give you a lot of experience, right? It's also important to remember or to think about, hey, is the proposal binding, right? Once you finish the proposal, is that it? Do you have an opportunity to go back and fix it, or is that it? And then what are the school requirements, right? Deadlines, things like that. These are things that are important to think about. I'm going to squeeze that down a little bit. All right. Know your elements. These are the elements of your thesis, of your thesis. So first you're going to have your introduction and your lit review. Now there's going to be 2 kind of general formats for this. You're going to have 1 chapter and 2 chapters, right? So for 2 chapters, it's going to be that your first chapter is going to be a brief summary of everything you're going to do. And then chapter 2 is going to be focused on the literature review. Now I want you guys to kind of think of all of this like a cake, right? Think about if you tell your friends, your family, hey, I'm going to make a brand new cake. Nobody's ever made it before, right? So in your introduction, you're telling them about it, and then you're showing them, hey, this cake is going to be totally unique, right? And then as you move down to methods, right, which includes participants, design, IVs, measures, apparatus settings, and procedures, right? These are the ingredients. You're telling them, hey, these are the ingredients I'm going to use, right? So think about it like in this kind of a way, your methods or your ingredients. This is probably the most important thing of all of it. So consider that. Results. Now, in the initial stage, you're going to call this your analysis plan, right? You're telling people, hey, this is how I'm going to interpret my results to make it make sense, right? Your analysis plan. And then finally, you have your references, your appendices, and your table of contents. So yeah, so that's chapters 2 and chapters 5. I know I ran over those super quick, but hopefully this has been helpful for you. And they're short chapters, so if you feel like you need to go in there and look them over, I would recommend it. It's not going to be too much work, especially the checklist in chapter 2. If you have a chance to do that, I found it to be very helpful in just assessing where I'm at and where I could improve. So anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic day.